All right, we're rolling. Here we go. It's always weird. There's a moment where it's like setting up your meeting for Facebook Live, but it's live.
Oh.
So this is that moment. All right, we're rolling. It's always weird. There we go. There, you hear me now. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody to the Q3 panel, the Whatcom Real Estate Hub panel. I've got two awesome local real estate brokers, awesome ladies here. And we're going to be waiting for Tracie to join us from, I think she's on Susha Island, but she's coming in with the name Maddie. So Maddie today will be joining us, which is actually Tracie. So let's go. Brady Bunch set up here. Alana, you're up in the upper left corner. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Sure. My name's Alana May, and I work for Brandon Nelson Partners. And I am, let's see, I had to count the years, and it's been 6. So I've been in the business for 6 years. I have a family, 2 kids, and a husband who works at the hospital, and I live in Sunnyland.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And Jess Davis, down on the bottom of the screen here. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
I'm Jess. I'm with MJB Real Estate Group. I've been licensed since 2017, but became a full-time agent and not a support role March of 2020. So same time the quarantine hit, which is really fun. And yeah, I grew up in Bellingham, Sudden Valley specifically, went to school in the Midwest and moved back in 2017.
Awesome. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And we've got Tracie from the boat. Tracie, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. Thanks for joining us. And we're just doing a round of introductions here. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Sure. My name's Tracie Gillette, and I am affiliated with Windermere North, which is out of Linwood. I clearly love to boat and fish. 2 kiddos, a husband that supports other realtors as well. Kinds of things. We just bought a cabin up in Glacier, so we're soon.
Are we losing her? Okay, I think we're losing Tracie here a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute her, and we're going to come back around if we can get the service back on track here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the market right now. You know, Jess and Alana, we talked a little bit about the market. What are you both seeing right now, currently, kind of this last 3-month, would you say 3 or 4 month chunk that's its own kind of micro environment of the real estate market? What are you both seeing as far as buyers go, real estate goes, the market goes? What trends are you seeing right now?
Like me to go first? Well, I think what's most surprising to me, and has definitely been the biggest difference, is it's equally competitive regardless of the price range that you're in. So it really doesn't matter if you're in the 300s or over $1 million. Things are escalating, and they're escalating by quite a bit. So I did find that to be one of the most surprising trends of this current market.
Yeah, Alana?
I can piggyback on that a little bit. I feel like at first, when we were first experiencing this bigger surge, pricing became less and less known. Like comps became less and less. I felt less and less confident in comps and how to gauge like where an offer should escalate based on them, because every new sale was a new comp. And so it definitely took just constantly reanalyzing, constantly keeping buyers up to date with how this situation is just unprecedented, and we're all kind of learning together, but learning and teaching strategies as went along and were successful, was helpful in, I think, getting to where we are now, which I sales seem to have caught up a little bit, and we can see where things have closed at over the last 3-4 months. We're getting a better sense of where things list and where they're ending up for people.
So basically what you're having to do is you're saying, well, historically you can look at, well, the listing agent has done their comparable analysis, hopefully. We've done our own comparable analysis, and historically we've been able to look at the past to be able to say, okay, here's kind of the ballpark based on what we project appreciation to look like, that we should come in. Here's your actualization rate of how many years it will take you to do that. But you're basically having to say, here's the history, here's what all the crazy other people are willing to do, and trying to basically make that a tangible thing when it's not tangible, right? So what's your experience like in explaining that to your clients and saying, well, this is what, historical data shows this, but the future shows maybe this, Jess, what's your experience with that?
Set the expectation that I think a lot of buyers come in and feel like they're overpaying.
Yeah.
And yet they're not. And they have to understand the market that we live in here. Like Bellingham as this niche, beautiful area with the water and the mountains, and to think you're going to wait it out until the prices start falling I don't think is true. So, helping educate, helping people get behind, and each buyer's different. You don't know if someone's planning to sell in a year or if this is their long-term residence. So that you can build the strength of your offer off of that too.
What does that conversation sound like? How do you coach your clients? What does that conversation sound like, Jess?
Well, for me, I always like to, like a big part of what I do with all of my buyers is I meet with them and hopefully their lender, either through Zoom or in person, and I go over an entire offer. Like we write an offer, a very competitive offer, so we can talk about all the nuances that make our offer stronger. So it's not like the day of and I'm like, okay, do you feel comfortable doing a pre-inspection right now? It's about $500 or whatever it is, or waiving this, or adding a 22 AD. So that's one thing that I like to go through with the lender and really seeing what is their buying power and where are they comfortable landing. And then once we have that level, then it's like, okay, if you want to land at 500, we're not going to be looking at homes at 500,000, right? We're going to be looking at homes probably 450 and below to get to that 500 because things are escalating. And then ultimately, I always tell all my buyers, we don't know what other buyers are competing for this house. There could be a buyer that has a ton of cash. So we write your best offer. It's not necessarily about competing anymore. It's about writing your strongest offer, because ultimately I would hate to write an offer that escalates to this crazy number and we get it, and then they're sitting there in this house and their monthly payments are way more than what they told me they're comfortable with, or they now have no cash in their bank account and they're just very overwhelmed. So really preparing them for that we are going to have to be very competitive, but I'm never going to push them past the point of where they want to go.
Right.
But they also have to know that sometimes that means we're going to get beat out, and they're okay. Usually, it's worked out pretty well.
So I'm hearing two things there. The first thing is going through the whole motions of an offer first. So it's not like when they write their actual first offer, it's not their first offer. It's right. They're writing an offer ahead of time, then they're writing it again when they're in the real zone. And the other thing that I'm hearing is that, you're setting the bar lower, right? You're setting the expectation lower, saying, yeah, great, you can go up to 650, but we're going to start at 5 or 550. This is the range we're looking in so that you can be competitive ultimately, right?
Right.
Yeah. And Tracie, can you hear us okay?
I can hear you now. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, welcome back. So what we're talking about right now is the current market and the expectations that are being set, the conversations that you're having with buyers in order to you don't want to scare them out of the market, but you want to set the expectations properly so that, going into multiple offer situations, their mind's right, or their expectations are right, or they're not working with you. You've decided, hey, these are the expectations that you need to adhere to. And if not, you should not be looking for a home. Right. So what is that conversation like for you?
For me, it really starts from the beginning with a really in-depth buyer's consultation. And lately I've even been splitting it into 2 sessions, where the first session is me getting to know them, what their wants and needs are, what's important to them, and who they are just as people. And once I have that together, having a conversation with their lender and figuring out what their comfort level is from the lender's perspective and collaborating there. And then regrouping again with a second consultation where we're really just diving into market education, looking at, you know, the homes that have sold in the last 30 days at the price point they're hoping to be in, based on, just like Jessica said, comfort level for monthly payment, how that translates for their loan scenario, and looking at what price did those homes start at, and then even, you know, them picking 3 that we would have loved to have had these homes, and me calling the listing agent and finding out how many offers did they have, what did the terms look like, and reporting back to the buyers so that they understand what it's going to take to get a home in that price point. So the relationship for me and a buyer is usually at least a week, if not 2 weeks long, before we even set foot inside of a home. It's, you know, and that might be multiple conversations.
Well, and from what I'm hearing, everybody is just taking the time up front, right? Like, just take the time up front to vet these people, right? For their own good, right? And
Yeah.
so you're having these conversations. What do those tough conversations sound like? Because the sexy thing about real estate is looking at homes. That's what everybody wants to do. They want to bypass getting pre-qualified, but ultimately that's the most important piece. What do those tough conversations sound like for you all when you're having to say, not yet. Nope. We're not doing that yet. Jess, you want to jump in?
Sure. I think for me is when someone's planning to work with me, you know, I talk about that this is a relationship that we are going to be working with each other for a very long time. And I want to make sure that I can do my job properly. And that's being really informed on what their situation is and also how I can make that happen for them. If we're just going out to houses and I don't know if they can afford it, I don't know what their lending requirements are, it doesn't give us any valuable information for the process at all. So I could know if you love a floor plan, but right now we don't have 50 houses to look at. So I think that's big. And then also something that's unique, I believe, to Bellingham is area. I have so many people that want to spend $500,000 and they want to be in a core neighborhood of Bellingham. And that's going to be tough. But they want it to be new and they want, you know, maybe an acre and like things like that, or walkability and acreage. Like, so really setting those expectations first. And I think kind of what Tracie said, sometimes it does need to be, if you have a lot of work on that end of really setting the expectation and picking through what is the vision, and also, okay, well, have you considered Sudden Valley? Have you considered Blaine? Have you considered Ferndale? I mean, areas right outside of Bellingham. Then it does need to be kind of broken up into 2 different conversations where you're setting the expectations. But there's so much that happens in those first conversations. It's hard to do it at a house. It's hard to do it. I mean, sometimes you have to meet them at the house, and you have this conversation when you're there and you say, listen, it was great showing this to you, but you know, for me to really help you, I have to know a lot more. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And Alana, for you, is there a line where you say, hey, look, if these, you know, basic requirements aren't met or the conversation doesn't progress past a certain point, you're saying, hey, it's probably best if you go work with somebody else. I mean, is that a conversation that you have, or is it, I mean, what does that look like?
No, I haven't. I think it's just about continuing to educate them. And, you know, and even if you are, like Jess was saying, taking them, you end up at a few homes. I have my clients personally ask me like for like the sobering facts. I don't think that people want to live in a fantasy world as much as they wish they could you know, I ask people, what is, like we talk about in the office, if you could wave a wand, like what could you have? And then from there, we need to say, well, we're probably not going to find a perfect match. So let's dial into what's the most important for you. And if I can help you find that, then I feel like we'll probably all feel great in the end. But just setting expectations, and even if it's like over and over and over again, and even if the lender needs to reiterate or whatever it is, but I don't find myself saying we're not a fit, we can't work together. I think it's more important to just educate, and it's you can do it in a very kind and pleasant way. So
Yep. Agreed.
Blame the market if you want, blame the lender if you want, blame whatever if you want, COVID but the facts are kind of there, and just to be someone that they learn you can trust. You're not just trying, I don't know. I think you kind of feel like you're maybe trying to sell a home if you're running around like a chicken with its head cut off to every single home. It's way more reassuring and, just trust building to slow it down.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme. And there's multiple different personalities that we all deal with, right? We've got really proactive buyers that we're like, man, I wish I had 20 of these people because these are awesome people to work with. And then we've got the buyers that kind of need to get dragged along. They're not really super proactive. We call them maybe more of a sedentary buyer. We've all had these people in our midst, and they're just as important as the proactive buyers, but they're just different personalities. What have you found as far as handling those different types of personalities? You've got someone that's proactive versus someone that's like, oh yeah, shoot, I need to get that document into the lender. How do you deal with that? Jess, how do you deal with that?
Well, I guess in the search process, so while we're still looking for a home, well, sometimes I love proactive buyers. I've also had some where I've had to just kind of pump the brakes a bit, because everything right now, you've got a couple of days to go get pre-inspection, get your offer, and do all these things. And so, sometimes it's, I've had one that was out of state, and it was constant at me dropping everything, going to see all these houses, doing video tours, and they were in all different areas, different price ranges. And so it's just resetting those expectations of like, okay, has this been helpful? Has the tours of all these areas, has that given us any more data to work with to help make your decision? And if it has, then I will happily keep doing that. That is my job, to give you as much information as possible to make an informed decision. But if it's not bringing any value, then we need to really stay focused, because there's a lot that goes into it once we do find a home. So I think that, and then with the people that aren't as motivated, I mean, at some point, depending on how many people you have in your pipeline, I mean, you really have to focus on the clients that are most motivated, and trying to get those other people, beyond just continuing to send them information and reaching out to their lender and saying, hey, have you checked in recently? Has anything changed with their rate? Can we do a touch point meeting? And if they're not responding, then just continuing to put the energy into the clients that are really active, because we only have so much time in which we can do all of the things.
Time, that's a funny concept. I think a lot of things that I've been noticing, a theme of what I've been noticing a lot with, especially on the buyer side with myself and other agents, is this concept of burnout. You talk about focusing your time on, the priorities. What's that line for you all? What does that line look like? How do you set that? What are some indicators of this is kind of becoming a burnout with this person, or this person's not as much of a priority because of this factor, and this factor? What do you all look for? What factors, what indicators?
I think for me, at least, I like to solve things. So I really hate to have a situation where I feel like I can't be helpful. So usually I will stay in a buyer relationship longer than I probably should in some instances, or work with someone who's very difficult and just push through it, because that's my personality. I've had one client that I guess I've semi-fired, where he was an investor, got under contract on 2 different properties at the same time. One beat out 8 different offers. The other got him 50,000 under asking price, and he backed out just because, I don't know, he got nervous. And we had talked about, and we spent hours with the lender, hours reviewing every question possible. I mean, I got him so much information, And then from there, it was just constant places he wanted to look at, and he wanted to get a deal. He kept saying, well, or eventually I said, okay, we're finding these places. You're not allowing me to write the offers that will get us the home. What's going on? He's like, well, I'm an investor. I deserve to have a deal, to get a deal. And when you realize that their mindset is not matching the market, that's where I'm like, I can't solve that. Like I've already explained to you, seller does not care if you're an investor or not. I mean, you're not paying cash. I mean, you're competing with everyone else. So that was kind of when I realized I can't override whatever belief he has in his head that he is deserving of a better deal, even though I had gotten him the one deal and he let go of it. So that relieved a lot of stress.
Shedding a tear for that one deal.
Well, it just like, it gave me more compassion. I realized once I let him go, I had so much more capacity for my other buyers. And so in my head, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, I mean, this guy's willing to spend $1 million with me, but ultimately it was taking up so much of my emotional bandwidth that I just felt like I couldn't even fully show up for my other clients that were so deserving of that. So.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. And Tracie and Alana, do either of you have a limit on showings? I mean, is there a certain, like if someone says, realistically, there's not that many homes on the market, right? There's not a ton of new homes coming on the market every single day. So it's not like there's going to be 10 homes that truly fit a specific criteria every single day. I mean, even pre this boom or this lack of inventory, did either of you have any experience with hey, look, 5 showings, there should not be more than 5 showings or 7 showings or 3 showings? Do you have a limit? What's that limit for you both?
You mean when you're taking someone out on a tour that hasn't happened in 2 years? Is that what you're talking about, like a property tour where you're looking at the homes at once? I think 7 is really kind of the max where people start forgetting what one home looked like, and it's just overwhelming. I mean, you can't do more than 2 in an hour. It's at that point, it's not productive. Right.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. And Elena, would you second that as far as number of showings? Would you say if I came to you, I was a buyer and I said, Elena, I have 10 properties I want to see today, and they range anywhere from this to this, and they're in these areas, what would you say to me?
If I knew you already, I would go through and I would try to help you remember what was your most important criteria, and I would
like that
on with you. If I didn't know you at all, I would want to learn that right off the bat, and I would need to know, do you understand these different neighborhoods? Do you realize where these 10 homes lie? Let me ask you more questions so that we can start weeding them out together. You know, I'm not necessarily trying to talk you out of anything, and maybe you're open to all sorts of things, but I feel like there's so much you can talk out before you go run around like a crazy person.
Yeah. So. What about drive-bys? Do you ever have people, so you say, hey, look, you've never seen the area before. Would you like me to go do a, FaceTime tour, FaceTime tour of the neighborhood? Have you driven by the house or driven by the houses? Do you ever ask people to do those?
I love it when people offer to. I will. I think I've asked people to do that, and there's some people who you can tell they know that it's appreciated, just to check out. And maybe it happens where there's a certain buyer and you pull up, it's becoming a pattern where you pull up and you don't spend more than 5 minutes at a property because it's just instantly they're like, oh. So anytime I can learn that about a buyer and I can jump on Realist or jump on a map or, any aerial shot or anything I already know about the neighborhood or just all the due diligence up front, it pays off in the end ultimately. And then there's less burnout on their end. If they're running around showing home after home after home, they do start to blur together. You start to probably lose track of where you're even focusing. And then the more you see or the more you lose, the more burnt out you get.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like what you said about the screenshot, the aerial shot of just saying, hey, I remember how you said these 5 things. Well, this area, this is really close to the airport or, trailer park or whatever it is, or whatever they don't want. Right. So I think that's a really good way of doing it.
Think proactively, because they're not always putting two and two together all the time, and especially people that aren't even here. We're doing out of state, sight unseen offers and pendings and sales, and so that's, I mean, that's like where the real crazy A game comes in, because you're doing sight unseen stuff. But
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And I've had some people come to Bellingham as like an exploratory trip. And usually if they're here for a weekend, I'll break it up into two different days. And one I've created like on MapQuest, just a self-directed tour of Bellingham with places to stop for brunch and lunch and dinner and a couple suggestions so that they can drive around and see the lettered streets and see. And then I put in there kind of what the neighborhood is, what the price ranges are, and what available, as long as they're available homes matching their criteria in that area. Have them drive to Sudden Valley, check out the marina, check out the Valley Market. So I try to do some things where I'm learning, okay, are you just looking to explore the area, or are you really interested in these specific homes? And then similar to what Alana was saying, I will go through, and if they give me like 20 homes, go through and kind of do a plus or minus on each one, like pros and cons for their specific needs, and then send it to them and say, hey, here's a few houses, and here's a few I think that we don't need to see. It's, at the very top of our price range, likely going to escalate. Call the agent. They already have 2 early offers in. I don't think it's going to be, worth our time. Let's focus on these other ones. And so, I have done full days of tours even recently, because people don't know exactly where they want to land in terms of location. But really making sure that we get some information from each of the showings. So even if that's a fixer, and it might not be where they land, it is sometimes good to show them that and just say, okay, so is this actually something that you're willing to take on, having to fix up all these items? And sometimes they just need to be in that house to see that. So just as long as that there's value coming from the showings, then I'll do as many as we need to.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like the concept of value for sure. So obviously you both don't just do buyer sides. We do, listings as well, right? But the whole purpose of this conversation is around the buying side. So let's talk a little bit about the transaction process that we're seeing, kind of the standard, let's say 3 to 5 days on market through the weekend with review, time for pre-inspection. We've got this window of like getting in there as quick as possible, making a decision as quick as possible, and then just kind of staying in touch with the listing agent to kind of ride it out, to hone in on the right, best possible offer within their comfort zone. Tell me a little bit about, maybe, and don't name names, but just good experiences and bad experiences, so we can really set the example for what's working really well, what we should do more of, what are some things we can tweak about those processes. Let's start with a good experience recently where either of you were able to win, or maybe you didn't win, but it was a good experience with a buyer and dealing with a listing agent.
I mean, I have been lucky to have had quite a few really good experiences lately, and have had. For me, it's helpful to get to know agents' personality and style. And if I already have experience, like Jess and I kind of already know how each other works and what to expect, I mean, that's really comforting. But if it's an agent I don't know, I think I'm extra cautious, extra checking in, extra, not that I'm not already, but I had a great experience with an agent I've never worked with recently, and I wrote a contingent offer and got it accepted. So started out thinking, no way, first of all. And just the communication that she and I had, I felt like our offer was going to get heard. She was going to relay, what I was hoping she was going to present. And so just anything and everything I can do to communicate as best as possible seems to be a pretty good strategic way to win offers.
Yeah. Jess, would you second that?
Yeah.
I mean, so it's everything, kind of.
Yeah, definitely. I think really trying to get to know the listing agent, their communication style. Is it through text? Is it through email? How frequent do they want updates? I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, it's your favorite person again calling, so just, I don't want to completely overwhelm them, but let them know we're super motivated. But also really learning what the seller's motivation is. And the more that we can check off all the boxes for the seller, I mean, the easier it is for that listing agent to present your offer, and explaining your buyer's situation so that they know if the seller has a question when they're going over offers, like, oh, well, they gave me a month rent back. Do you think they'd do 2 months? Yes, actually, they're not moving here for another 3 months. That's what so whatever story you can present to the listing agent so they can also represent your clients, and while representing theirs. So every offer, I always do an offer at a glance, with the bullet points, which I think just helps when you get a ton of offers in your inbox and not having to comb through it. And then including any extra details about my clients and what their ability, for rent back period, for instance, is. And then I have in the past as well, asked if I could present via Zoom, and I've done that 3 different times. So that was nice to have the opportunity. And I felt like it definitely helped.
Yeah, the personal touch, is really important. Anything you can do really at this point to stand out, right? Because it might be you and 2 other or 3 other really, really great agents, with great offers, and it's that little edge. And it can be something as simple as making sure your offer is in order, right? I mean, I've had offers come in that are completely out of order and missing pages, and just I feel bad, but I also say, hey, look, I'm still going to present it, but you need to do your job and put this in order. And so there's a lot of little things. We're talking about communication. We're talking about making it as easy as possible for the listing agent to just quickly look at, digest, get it to their seller. Because ultimately, we need to make them our advocate, right? They need to be our advocate going, gosh, this person was so on top of it. They were super friendly. I can tell they know what they're doing. And by the way, they made this offer super easy, right? And then understanding from the seller's perspective what they need. So what are some things that you're noticing that maybe on the flip side that are not being done well from the listing agent perspective? Because I think we can all agree that it's a 2-way street. You get 2 pros on either side. It makes it so much better it's all about the clients, right? It ultimately makes the best possible experience for the sellers and the buyers, right? So what are some experiences you've seen recently where things maybe didn't go so well, and how did you handle that? Because it's kind of puts the onus on you to do the work, right? If the other side is not doing the work, right?
I mean, I think something that doesn't work, and I don't know, it's not new, but like sellers that leave town when their house is listed and just like drop off the earth, and you're trying to get information, and if the listing agent doesn't know it already, it just makes for this like very difficult, frustrating situation, and your buyer's left like probably willing to do more or do something else, and we don't even know where to go with it. I mean, but I don't know if you're experiencing that too, but I have noticed more people don't always kind of know what their seller really needs or wants.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Right. It's like you're,
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, you're trying to write a really strong offer and you don't know what's most important to the seller, or, the agent's unable to communicate that. And for me, listings that don't have all of the information that you need to write an offer, or, like a Form 17 even, or availability. If you are going to do a pre-inspection and they allow that, just not having that form available and signed, because now you have to wait, and maybe you've got an inspector who can do it in a couple of hours, but you're trying to get back to your office or do it on your phone, and just making it easier for us to bring a really strong offer, and being available by phone or text, and communicating. And sometimes I feel like there's some agents where I'll say, hey, so they've got multiple offers, and did anyone waive the inspection? Oh, I can't tell you that. I'm not going to tell you that. And I totally understand that not all agents want to share everything, but there's some things that will help me relate to my buyer to present you an even stronger offer. So at some point, some information is helpful in bringing you a good offer.
Right. Well, and what I'm hearing is on both ends, ultimately, the buyer's end, you've taken the time, to prepare them, put them through the process, get them ready for the market, really hone in, maybe write a mock offer, and maybe you've written a couple offers, and you're at this point where you're full throttle. You're completely prepared, completely ready to go, completely pre-approved. And it takes, the other side also. It's not always about getting that property to market as soon as possible. Sometimes it's about getting the property to market with as much information and the best package for someone to sink their teeth into, right? For someone in that stage that's ready to go to jump into it. It just adds so much smoothness to the transaction if both parties are really doing their job to prepare. What about showing time? Tell me a little bit about because it's an amazing tool, but if it's not used properly and it's not scheduled, have you found any challenges or things that you've really liked about it recently? Because I know it's now a norm.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I've never used it before. I really enjoy it now. I do sort of use it in a strategic way to get a sense of how competitive something is seeming, depending on when you go to make an appointment, you can see how booked out it already is. And, that's helpful. I've only had one instance where I've shown up and it got double booked somehow. I don't know if the restriction wasn't put on the listing. I don't know how that happens, but it happened, and everybody was cool, and one person looked outside and one person looked inside, and whatever. But I like it a lot.
Yeah. I haven't looked back. I don't, not that we don't want to talk to each other, but it's just about that one piece, right? We want to talk about the actual transaction and our buyers and the sellers, but scheduling showings was just chaotic before, wasn't it?
As a agent, I used to carry around this notebook and have to write down everybody and what time and people are switching. And yeah, to have done that and have showing time now is much appreciated.
Yeah. Jess, I'm going to ask you a question here. So in your ideal world, you have a buyer that's ready to roll. They're completely pre-qualified, good expectations. What's your ideal scenario that a listing agent set up for proper time for you to do a pre-inspection, to get in there and take a look? Enough time to ready to get offer. What is the ideal time frame if someone were to list a property for the most buyers to be able to get their eyes on it?
Like how many days before the offer review date?
Yeah.
I would say 5 or 6. To me seems like enough time. And I for some weird reason, I felt like I had a listing where we gave more time than that. And I just felt like it petered out because between when I listed and when a review date was, a bunch of other homes came on, and by a bunch, maybe 3 or 4, but still something to distract from my buyers really focusing on this one house. So, or their buyers focusing on the one house. So I would say, yeah, around 5 to 6 days.
Yeah. And what about, this whole conversation? I know there's been some conversations in the hub about, we have this offer review date. Most properties now have an offer review date, right? But there have been scenarios where, fortune favors the bold, and they go after it and they say, hey, would you accept an offer early? And I know there's been kind of this debate going back and forth. I'd love to hear both your opinions on what's the proper scenario. I mean, ultimately it's what the seller wants, right? It's not about what we want. We're trying to give them the best opportunity, but what's your opinion on that? Like, what's the proper scenario for that?
I feel like you kind of asked us like what's going well, what's not going well. And I feel like the offer review date can kind of get things muddled because it's always or they can accept early. And so we already have a lot of like heightened awareness about the fact that it may not go until Monday.
Right.
And it's a lot. I wish it was like you had to decide set in stone. We're either upon receipt or Monday or whatever the date, to take an offer early is also a lot of work because it's a lot of communication and you do the best you can. Yep. You don't know about the buyers that agents hasn't even reached out yet. And it's not even the buyer's fault. There's just so many more ways to frustrate people to take something early. And of course, you're presenting as they come in, and your seller gets to decide, and you can help coach them and decide in the moment what's best. And I feel like too, there's been, with such little inventory, to consider taking something early is usually because there's a really strong offer that prefers your listing to something else, and that other home has a review date after yours. So you're put in this position to say, we don't have a crystal ball, but we need to make a decision potentially. Or do we risk telling them to hang on for another 2 days and they're just uneasy and we lose them too? So it's, to have a set day would be amazing, but I realize that's not the case.
Either or.
Yeah, I would rather either or. I think
Yeah.
we could all just kind of chill out a little bit.
I like that. I'm going to get everyone a t-shirt that says, let's all just chill out a little bit, you know? Yeah. Yeah. There's no need to rush, right?
I don't think so. I think that expectation would be set, and we could all just happily share that information and know what to expect.
Yeah.
Easier.
Jess, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I would love, in the perfect world, that's how it would be, and offer review dates would be firm. But once you lose out on a house that they accepted an offer before then, you don't trust it. And I represent my buyer at the end of the day, so I'm always going to ask. And I've had some agents say, nope, absolutely not. They're out of town, they're off the grid, they don't want to look at anything new, or they want to give everyone a chance. And then I absolutely 110% respect that, and will wait and submit right at the time that they tell me to submit. But if someone says, yeah, they're open to looking at it, then I will use speed as something that I'm going to bring that maybe another agent isn't able to bring. And I will move everything around to try to get a pre-inspection right away and get a really strong offer in that, ultimately is, if it's strong enough to be accepted early, then it's a really strong offer. So, yeah, it gives you a little bit of if there's some agents that just strictly will not submit an offer before an offer review date, per what I believe I read in the hub, which could be losing them out on other offers. So it does give some agents an advantage, I would say, if they're willing to put all the effort into doing something early. But yeah, I'd much prefer for there to be an actual 4 to 5 days where you can schedule everything out and you're not, running frantic and running your clients frantic. And
And
yeah,
then
ultimately, yeah, it comes down to relationships and communication, right? And I agree with you on that, and it's tough. But what are some indicators? What, like, for both of you, and this is not necessarily like a set in stone, like, oh, this is every time. But what do you look for when you're, you have one of those scenarios where you trust them to go to the review date, they don't go to the review date, and you're like, I'm never doing that again, And what does that look like? What do you look for? What are some things you look for where you're like, oh, nope, we're gonna go hard, we're gonna go get a pre-inspection, I'm not trusting this timeline,
I don't, yeah, I don't necessarily get indications that I shouldn't trust an agent that they're not going to accept. If they waffle a bit and they're like, well, I really want them to hold true to it. I just had one like that where it's like, well, yeah, I'm pretty sure we're going to stick to it. And then I get a call the next day, and it's like 3 days before the offer review date. We got a really good offer, so get your offer in today. Which, again, I can't blame the agent. So if someone is very I've had the conversation with my clients, that's, I guess, the indicator I look for. Have you had the conversation with your clients? And it's ultimately up to them. And usually they are on one end of it. They're either, yes, I will accept, I want to look at things as they come in, or would potentially look at something that comes in early, or no, we're holding to this day. I'm going to give everyone a fair chance.
Yeah. Alana, what about you?
I kind of missed the beginning of the question, but I think I can piece it together. So yeah, I think based on what's most important to your seller, if and some people accept a great offer right off the bat because it meets their terms, and they're like, that's it. I'm not looking for the most money. I'm looking for the best fit. or quickest close, or so whatever is the match. I
Yep.
think is the best way to sort of gauge probably how your seller's gonna react, or if it's in their best interest or not. But
Yeah.
I guess if strongest offer, highest price, best terms is their thing, and they're willing to just want to see everything the market's going to bring them, then hold to your date.
Yeah. And I think we all need to give each other some grace too, because we're all coworkers, right? In one capacity, but at the same time, the person that we're working for is our client, right? And so we have to remember that. So we can give each other some grace. We're in that situation, just communicate, right? Like, hey, look, I have to do what's best for my seller. And you're like, well, I have to do what's best for my buyer. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if they make a decision that is not in your best interest, that's their choice, right? That's the seller's choice. So let's make sure to remember that. And I think ultimately communication is pretty key in that situation. Like, hey, look, I'm just doing what's best for them. So
always the most money too, and so we can easily forget that, and it feels like that just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. But it's not up to us. We present it, and there's all sorts of factors that come into every offer. So as long as it's all laid out and they have the tools that they need to make their decision, then
help them make that decision, right?
yeah.
Yeah, whatever direction that goes.
On the awesome, lucky end of being a buyer's agent and getting a home for my clients because of the way they presented their letter, and that's part of also knowing the seller and what is most important to them. When you're selling a family home that's been passed down for generations, to not give a buyer letter is crazy to me. And I've had clients that win something over cash and they get it for like 40,000 less, just based on their love of the property and what their plans are for it, how long they're going to be there. It's just the fit is the most important thing, and the seller just,
Yeah. And I think
looking for.
Elena, also something that both of you said as we kind of get geared up to wrap up here, is trying. Just don't be afraid to do the thing, even if it's more work. That's not your client's problem. You're representing your clients. You're there to do whatever it takes to make sure that they, to make sure that they get what they need, right? And so, like Jess said, and like you just said, just do the work. Just do the work and be willing to go either direction. Doesn't matter if it's more work or less work or your weekend's ruined or what. It doesn't matter. It's not about you. It's about your client. And both of you exemplify that, and I know Tracie does as well. And a lot of people in this group really exemplify that, like really hard work, doing the best for their client. What if you were to pass along some advice to a newer buyer's agent or someone that is stepping into that role, starting in this market, which is a wild time to start? What's some advice that you would have for mindset or work ethic, or I mean, any of the above for that person? Jess, if you want to start us off.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I was just in that role. March 2020 was not that long ago. So for me, it was one, really getting to know my clients and their needs, leaning on the lenders. I mean, that was a huge part because I really want to understand their financial situation. What are all the different ways that we can make this work so that when I do write an offer, I know what I'm speaking about. Like, I need to feel like I'm an expert in whatever I'm about to present. And so you have to kind of be an expert also in what your client's situation is. And then I think, what can you do to make the listing agent's job easier? And usually that's through communication, letting them know that, yes, you are submitting an offer, keeping them up to date. I mean, I've received an offer that I had no idea where it was coming from. I'm like, whoa, I just got a fourth offer or fifth offer, and I've made a spreadsheet for this many because I had no idea this was coming, and never spoken to this agent and haven't heard from their lender and don't know what's going on. So I never want to throw, a curveball to a listing agent who's already overwhelmed and has 10 to 15 other offers at their lap. So really making their job as easy as possible. And then, I mean, this sounds kind of cheesy, but like bringing some levity with your clients, because it can be kind of a tiring scenario and situation, but just staying really upbeat and giving them like the courage to like, okay, we're gonna find you a house. I know it didn't work out this time. These are the reasons why we were beat out. What can we learn from that? Is there anything we can do to, improve our offers moving forward? And let's just keep the focus and keep looking. So
Love it. Love it. Alana, what about you?
Gosh. I think I agree. Just, keeping it light with your clients, especially if you're new. I'm sure it's going to be extra stressful, but I would probably feel like the best thing for a new agent would be to make sure you're reaching out via phone call to the agents. It's important that people learn who you are. And even if you've never done a deal, you probably won't do a deal with them for a long time, but at least if they know your name and they start to appreciate your questions and you get to know like which lenders are most trusted or who, just who you want to have in your, as your sort of core team. If you have a new buyer that doesn't have any, no, they don't have a lender, they don't have an agent, they're new with you and whatever. And you're going to go represent them, just to get your name out there, whether you're going to win the deal or not. Just, I would rather be familiar with the name and eventually they had great questions, or I already know that they trust this lender. They are really good advocates for their client. That would be better for me to receive an offer from someone like that than, like Jess said, just the curveball offer, never heard of them, came out of nowhere. They don't follow up. They're just waiting for the phone call to see if they got it or not, So if you have no deals under your belt, just communicate with agents. Just try and plug yourself in as many places as you can, and eventually people will know
Start
you.
landing. Yeah, no offers with evidence of fun with Bitcoin on there written in. Yeah, that's not a doable thing. But both of you, I very much respect both of you, and I very much respect Tracie, and I love what you guys are all doing. And thank you so much for sharing your insight. Whether it's been a year or two, or it's been 5 years or 10 years. I mean, you all do so much for this hub community, as well as raising the bar, in my opinion, in our local community. And that's what we want to do. We want to keep this bar raising, because the more we do that as a group together, the better it's going to be for our clients, the better it's going to be for our local market. So thank you so much to both of you for sharing your knowledge and spending some time on what I imagine to be a very, very busy day for both of you, or maybe not, maybe get some time off, but thank you. Really appreciate it.
thank you, Leo.
And thank you everyone for joining us today. The recording will be in the hub, and obviously we'll send off a YouTube link, and we will all go from there. Have a great rest of your day, guys.